And we're live with Jeff, aka the SP Spouse, and he has a very good channel, and
Yeah.
I think it's spelt the SP and then Spouse.
It's not spelling.
Morgan said that's not spelling. Yeah, it's
Right.
spelled
With
Yeah.
2 Z's in it.
letters.
Right, so I'm opening up the explanation, and then in fact, what will help if I move the taskbar onto the second screen. We'll spend a couple of minutes on the explanation, then we'll get straight to the bullet points. Now, while I'm doing this, Jeff, you could tell me what you were saying beforehand about the Carl Jung's definition of SI.
Well, do you actually want me to quote something, or you just want me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I still have the page.
Yep.
Over here on the browser. So using the iPad, everything has to be click out of something into the other thing. You can't just have like tabs. So, well, obviously it's too much to read all of this, but basically, he, the way that it is in psychological types is he says like the extroverted type, and then he has like the function stuff within that, and then he says the introverted type, and then has like the functions of within that. So it's like a totally different section where he's talking about introverted sensation versus extroverted sensation. But basically, the gist of it is, well, okay, so it's a sensation which, in obedience to its whole nature, is concerned with the object and the objective stimulus, also undergoes a considerable modification in the introverted attitude. It too has a subjective factor, for beside the object sense there stands a sensing subject who contributes his subjective disposition to the objective stimulus. In the introverted attitude, sensation is definitely based upon the subjective portion of perception. What is meant by this finds its best illustration in the reproduction of objects in art. When, for instance, several painters undertake to paint one and the same landscape, with a sincere attempt to reproduce it faithfully, each painting will nonetheless differ from the rest, not merely by virtue of a more or less developed ability, but chiefly because of a different vision. See, to me, that part gets a little bit confusing, but there was a part a little bit later in that was a little bit where he stops talking about art.
Well, yeah, I mean, the SI types, it's like a subjective, individualist vision, eye of the beholder stuff.
Yeah, okay, so he says, the character and significance and meaning clings to subjective perception. It says more than the mere image of an object, though naturally only to him for whom the subjective factor has some meaning. To another, a reproduced subjective impression seems to suffer from the defect of possessing insufficient similarity with the object. It seems, therefore, to have failed in its purpose. Subjective sensation apprehends the background of the physical world rather than its surface. So what he's basically saying there is that, again, when you have someone who's like an SJ type who says, I don't have SE or I don't use SE, that's not the case. They just don't understand that what he's saying is that it's more important to, an SI type, which the SJs are all essentially SI types, what the meaning of that is, and not meaning in like, the abstract way, like, NFs, but what its practical meaning is to that person. So that's why with SJs is so much of the time they spend talking about how things aren't what they used to be, and talking about the good old days, because everything they're encountering in the present, there's an instant comparison to the past, or whatever the familiar version of that thing is. They're immediately drawn to make a comparison between the current version and the past version. Like this, is this familiar to me or is it not
Right.
familiar?
And also,
they instinctively prefer the familiar version.
And also, it's not just the past, but it's their subjective vision of the past, because memory can be selective.
So it's yeah. So that's why when people you see people talk the good old days, and then people say, well, wait a minute, there were plenty of problems in the old days. This and this and this were happening, but it's been in a way is sort of idealized, but in a different way than NF idealism, which tends to more idealize the future, like. Here's if we just work together, here's what we can accomplish. Whereas the SJ, it's more like if you think about the good times, then the old days, that's the good times. You remember the good stuff. And but the thing is with SJs is they like remembering the bad stuff too. It's sort of like it's part of the whole concept. They like talking about the good old days, including the stuff that was bad. So it's like. But a lot of times it is like it's lamenting the present, more than the past. It's lamenting how the present is not like the past was, and how it's everything. People don't appreciate anything today, or this doesn't get done like it used to, and all this stuff. And I used the comparison right as I read that. I said we had that in when we did our last homicide review, because Bolander, the ISTJ detective, had the line, "Murder ain't what it used to be."
I thought you thought that Bolander was ISFJ.
Nah, I think he's probably a T. I think Bayless is an ISFJ. But yeah, I get more of a thinker vibe from Bolander.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because of his job, though.
And in the episode that. In the episode that I watched today, but you haven't seen yet, you'll get another really good example of Bolander coming off as an ISTJ. So yeah, Bayless is the one that's because in the the difference is like Bayless is the one that talks more about the morality of things, about crime and stuff. It's always like, he thinks of things in terms of good people don't commit crimes, bad people do, and.
Right.
He frames things in that way, whereas Bolander is more of, he like I said, he's the dragnet type cop. He's just the facts man. Just tell me what happened. We solve it based on the facts, and we don't need to mess with all this other stuff.
How old is Bayless meant to be? About 23 or something?
I think he's older than that. Yeah, he's older than that.
Because that's such a naive thing to say. Only bad people commit crimes.
Well, I'm not sure he actually says the words "only bad people commit crimes," but he definitely does draw a distinction between, like, again, there's an episode coming up you haven't seen yet, but he talks about, like, the difference between, like, a crime of passion where somebody just blows somebody away because of something that happens instantly, versus someone who has, like, a perverse fascination with such things, or actually enjoys, like, killing people or other types of things he considers perversions and things. So he looks at that as being, that's a different type of person. That's not the same as regular normal people.
Okay, so if people want to know more about this, there's a whole playlist, and there's going to be every single episode of Homicide reviewed.
Yeah. We hope we'll eventually get there.
Yeah, and in between, we're going to be doing Blake 7, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Red Dwarf.
I haven't committed to those last two things.
Okay.
Watch the first episode, because I haven't either. I don't think I watched any of the rest of them, but the first one was good.
All right.
Oh, you watched Red Dwarf?
Who, me or him?
Morgan, sorry.
I watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, episode 1.
Yep. Oh, and you thought it was okay?
Episode 1.
Oh, excellent. So there's only 6 of those, and if you really like it,
there's only 6, huh?
Yeah, it was super fast.
There's 4 more radio series, but we could do those after Red Dwarf if we like them. Now, so just a little bit of theory, then we can get on the bullet points. The idea is that you have really low energy for SI, Jeff. The SOCIONICS kind of SI, which is all about cooking and cleaning, and that's the way it is. They call it comfort sense, and that's pretty much what it is. Because like the SI DOMs are good at cooking and cleaning, are they not?
Well, not necessarily. I would say, they're bothered more by stuff not being done a certain way. But they're still like, I wouldn't say that necessarily translates or they're always good at cooking and cleaning. In fact, I would say that might be a little bit I'm not trying to be sexist here, but it might be more of a female trait, not because I'm saying that is how it should be. I'm just saying that tends to be what happens within, if it's as the way SJs look at things, they're sort of like traditional roles that people fill.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be like have an ultra conservative viewpoint of society or family to feel that way. It just sort of naturally happens to them that they kind of fall into those roles. But of course, if the more that they're in a non-traditional family situation, the more likely they are to adapt to how things are and do things differently. But I would say there'd be quite a few SJ males, especially, that their attitude is, well, that's woman's work to cook and clean. I do other stuff.
Yeah.
So, not everybody. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that's a pervasive view among many people. So.
Yeah. So this is in that block which has low energy. So for instance, we covered another low energy function of view in the previous Model G Hangout. That was TI. Not much energy for TI. And the way this is modeled is that you are in the model of this type. The ESFP has a lot of information for SI type things. They can see it. They're sensing types. They're very good at taking in all of this information to do with this function. It's just that they don't really care about it. So the quality of colors, quality of sound, it's in SOCIONICS. SI really is it's all the sensing stuff.
I like colors and sound.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the next part then is how much, like the way the SI types might put energy into it. They have to wait to get to the bullet points maybe to show the difference between something where you have high information for it, but it's not like you're a neat freak or anything.
No. Definitely not.
You can see any of this.
It's one of the reasons why I'm not on camera.
Okay. But you are, you are very, you would say that all SE DOMs are very sensitive in terms of sensing. They're sensors.
Well, yeah, unless they have something that physically doesn't allow. Yeah.
So, right, and then there's an idea that this helps to train up SI in your Joule. That's in the INTJ, but that's more advanced stuff. But the idea is that you think about SI a lot. Now, maybe that could be remembrances, things like that, remembering sensing type things, what things look like, how they sounded, what they felt like, all these sorts of things.
As I've gotten older, that has gotten stronger in the sense that I think more about those things than I used to. When I was young, I would say before my mid-20s or so, my sensing was pretty much what you see is what you get. What's right in front of you now is the only thing I'm really processing. I'm not really thinking much about how this compares to anything else, or, it was very much just deal with what's in front of you. And, mid-20s or so and beyond, I started to get more and more where I would make some of those comparisons. And I think some of that was just age and maturity. Some of it is also being a parent, where when you're a parent and you have a child that you're watching grow up in front of you, then it's sort of natural to start doing more of that comparison of, oh, this is how it was when I was a child versus how it is now. Like you start, and you look at other kids and how they compare to yours. You start to do more of those kind of subjective sensing things, and rather than just looking at, what the objective facts are in front of you. So I think that does start to come a little bit more naturally. But yeah, like you say, it's not as important in the sense that if I'm around somebody who's doing nothing but that, it starts to become tiresome to me. Like, because my natural instinct, if somebody is continuously talking about like how things are, things aren't what they used to be, I can even agree with that and kind of be like, yeah, on the specific thing you're talking about, I agree, it used to be better. But then my immediate thought is, I always tend to think, okay, but now what do I have and what do I deal with for now? Like I always instinctually come back to that, as opposed to, as Jay's instinctually always coming back to that, in terms of coming back to, the past comparisons and things like that. So it's just that, as that's natural to them, it's natural to me to not do as much of that. But like I said, I do more now than I used to, but I can't, I can only keep it up for so long before it gets kind of tiring.
Maybe this is because SOCIONICS SI is different, and it may be, so for instance, this thing about energy and low energy but high information. So maybe it's that SE DOMs have taste is, like for instance, say with food, taste is very important to them, but they've not got the energy to put a lot of effort into cooking something, but they would really enjoy something made by somebody else who have put the effort in. I'm just trying to think of examples of.
I have to say though, can I take this opportunity, because I said it before we were on, recording, that when you say in Socionics SI is different, like I think that in itself, I'm not insulting you here, but I think that's a bogus sentence there, because Socionics is not like, I mean, you can't just decide, well, it's something else because we feel like it. Like if it's something else, then call it something else. If you're going to use the terms that Jung used, then it's what he said it was.
All right, then introverted sensorica.
Introverted what?
Sensorica.
Sensorica.
Slightly more Russian. I can only go with what I have, Jeff. I mean, these are the definitions that are within Socionics.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is you don't have to be, again, you don't have to be bound by the fact that somebody else did something. Like, I understand.
Yeah, I know that.
In this case, you're trying to say this is like the things that are in this particular write-up that Victor's done, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with you saying that. My problem is that statement, in Socionics, this is different, because you can't just take it and turn it into something different unless you call it something different. Like, you just, because you're not, it's fundamentally something different, then it's not the same thing. See, there, and there's a good example of what I was just talking about, because my brain will always go back to turning something that is, to me, a common sense reality into the objective common sense reality, as opposed to, saying, well, it's important, it's less important to me. Or
right. Okay. I should have put what Victor called it, S- comfort sensing. I'll just say comfort sensing then, because that's what he calls it.
All right.
So comfort sensing. So if we go through these bullet points one by one. So if you concentrate on the first one, what about that? Some people might be like listening to this or watching it on their phone. They might not be able to read the text. So it says, little comforts and pleasures of life mean a lot to him.
I mean, I like little comforts and pleasures of life. I don't know how much they mean. It's just sort of like stuff I enjoy, but.
Examples, please.
I like eating food that tastes good.
Such as?
Well, you want me to list foods?
Well, you don't have to do too many. Maybe
I mean, I
5.
like a lot of different kinds of food. I like spicy food, for instance, but I don't require everything to be spicy. Just some, I like. There's only one person I know of in my life that likes stuff spicier than me, and that's my younger brother. Pretty much everyone else doesn't like stuff as spicy as I like it. So.
Right. So you like right? Okay. So that means you like stuff spicier than the average Texan.
Yeah, I would say probably so. I mean, I've never taken a poll or anything to figure out what the average level of spice that in Texas, but I would say I'm probably above average. Yeah, no, I don't know.
I always remind the audience to take culture into account. Where there's a particular kind of food in Texas that's spicier than the average American state, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I mean the most prominent, is what they call Tex-Mex food, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's not the only thing that gets served spicy. Obviously, there's a lot of different Asian foods that are that way as well, because particular styles or regions in Asia that have spicier food or particular dishes that they serve. So there's Chinese, Indian, Korean, Vietnamese, different foods like that, which I also enjoy if they're made well.
And there might also be certain things like say if a Texan's not got brilliant air conditioning, they don't want to come home and slave over a hot stove.
Well, that's probably true, yeah.
So
I am different than, I would say, probably the average Texan, at least adult age. Beer is really popular in Texas, and I don't drink beer, so I'm different. I'm not average in that area.
He is not the best sample of Texan, quote unquote.
Well, I mean, I think in a lot of ways I am.
The best.
I think there's quite a few ways that I would consider myself the average Texan, but and I don't strive to be that. It's just sort of naturally true in some areas, but that's just one that it is. But in a lot of other ways I am. Like I like chili, and I like tacos, and I like.
Have you got a 10-gallon hat?
I do not have a 10-gallon hat. No, and see here. Okay, here's the point I can make about that. Since we're on that subject, most Texans don't have 10-gallon hats. However,
Right.
if you are in public in Texas and someone walks in with a 10-gallon hat, average Texans are not going to look at someone funny for doing that. So
Right.
it's common enough that it's not weird, but it's not average.
Well, to me, it makes sense. I mean, I've got a big white.
Same thing with boots, spurs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'd say boots are probably the most common of the kind of
Boots,
stereotypes,
people wear
because even people that have never been in a on a farm or a ranch or anything like that wear boots sometimes because they just think it's stylish or whatever.
But like actual like leather full-on cowboy boots with spurs on them.
Yeah,
still is like it's not common, but
Right.
it's not weird.
Right. It's just the things that are
hey,
sort of Texas stereotypes again are not the typical Texan, but they're things that the typical Texan is used to it existing in terms of they're not going to be like, oh, that's crazy or something. There's one like we had people that came from up north that would when they arrived at school in Texas would say that they thought that we rode horses to school. That is not true. In fact, I don't know anywhere in Texas where they ride horses to school. There are plenty of, but again, if you live on a ranch or a farm or whatever, or out in the country at all, you might have a horse. But I don't know of anyone who rides a horse to school, because usually if you're in a rural area, school is far enough away that you pretty much have to take the bus there or have someone drive you, or you're not going to get to school on the same day.
In fact, Texas may have been famous in the past for like really big cars with V8 engines, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most common vehicle in Texas is probably pickup trucks, but that stereotype is true. Now, I've never had a pickup truck and don't really like them, but a lot of people do. So again, another way where I'm not quite average, but also not like weirded out by it. I don't like look around and go, what's with all these pickup trucks? This is crazy.
What about number 2? Tries to make sure the food is hearty and enjoyable.
Well, yeah. I mean, doesn't everybody try to do that? Are there people who try to who are like, well, if the food's not enjoyable, whatever. I guess there are some people that are like, food is just sustenance, and I don't care what it tastes like. You know, I think that's probably a minority, though. I think most people, you know, usually like to have good food,
Do you
whatever
think?
it is, however
Do
they
you think?
define that.
Do you think though it might be a thing where ESFPs, because they're sensing types, the theory would be that they're more sensitive to just all kinds of sensing.
I mean, yeah, I guess in general. I think the thing I guess with food is like that there are people, I'll say this, there are people that are satisfied with eating the same thing every day, basically. Um, and I wouldn't want to do that because I'd get bored of that. But compared to some people, they would still think that I didn't have any variety, that I was having the same thing all the time. Because there is a limit to how many different things I'll have. It's not like I have some kind of, you know, rotation of gourmet chefs that's making like, you know, a different recipe every day or something. You know, maybe if I was super rich, I would do that, but not having the ability, you know, the means to do that. I do have quite a few repeats in my rotation of food. But and there are some things that I probably could have every day for quite a while before I got tired of. But there's other things maybe that would not be the case with. For instance, I work at a food place,
Right.
and there are people that work with our company. Well, those of us that are in the office or in management, we get a certain amount of free food per day, and the SJs in the office take advantage of that a lot more often than I do, because it's like they, you know, the principle of, well, if saving money is more important than having, like, you know, a variety of food.
So what we could do is we could take advantage of your observational powers to. Have you noticed any patterns in eating, differences between SJs and SPs?
Yes, and I believe I just stated them.
Besides the cheapness, or maybe.
Well, in like I said about variety, like they're content with having the same stuff more often. So if we'll go to, I mean, they'll not mind going to the same restaurant more often, and at the restaurant we'll tend to order the same thing every time, or at least something close to it. Whereas I usually, like, I have my kind of standard favorites that if I don't have a particular thing I'm craving or really want to try, then I know, well, okay, I know this is good, I can get that. But in general, I tend to be the one at the table that is the one who wants to try the special or the new thing, rather as opposed to just something I already know. Still there?
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
thinking about. Do you want to answer number 3 or number 4?
Tends to gain weight with age. Well, it's like this was written exactly for me or something. I would say that varies by the person. It's true in my case, but you know, I don't know how specific that is to my type in terms of that, but I would say there's quite a few types that gain weight with age, and probably still quite a few people of my type that don't that much.
Humans gain weight with age.
Yeah, overall, I'd say that tends to happen. Not everybody, but in terms of metabolism and stuff.
You get older, you grow bigger.
Yeah, because usually what happens is muscle mass reduces, and muscle uses calories up, and so there's less muscle and so the calories go into fat rather than being burnt off by muscle.
See, you get science from this too.
Right. What about number 4?
Number 4. I thought you were reading them before, so you want me to read it?
Oh yeah. You got a better voice
Okay,
than I.
often interested in cooking, can be a good chef. I wouldn't say, well, I'm often interested in cooking, but I have my phases where I am, like where I'm more into it than others. And when I am into it, then you know I want to like try out cooking a bunch of different things. But there's practical things that factor into that. Like for instance, right now, like I don't have a good setup to cook because the garbage disposal is clogged up and the dishwasher doesn't work right. And when the combination of those two things makes me, think it's too much of a hassle to do cooking.
Right.
So, and so that sort of adds to disinterest because I don't get to the point where I'm really considering it that much. But I have my moments, like I'll see a recipe online or something, and I'll be like, "Oh, that looks like a good." I would do that right now probably if I didn't have things that are like stopping me from doing it. So, like for instance, in a few months we're going to be moving for the first time in 11 years, and when I move into the new place, I can see myself probably cooking more when we got there because it would hopefully not have the problems that have been plaguing me here. So,
do you think sensing types are more interested in cooking than intuiting types?
Personality shouldn't determine interest. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean it factors, but I don't think you can across the board say that. But yeah, I mean, I guess in general, I mean, just sort of as a really general rule, intuitive types tend to like uh, spending time on ideas more than physical activities. But that doesn't mean that they can't do plenty of physical activities and even be good at them. Just if you're going to say, well, overall, is a higher percentage of sensing types more interested in cooking? Probably so. But well, yeah, but even percentage-wise, I guess I would say most likely that would be the case. That wouldn't be, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be. Can I finish my sentence? Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Can you let me talk? Can you let me talk? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. That was my Ross Perot. That was my Ross Perot impression. Actually, it was my impression of Dana Carvey's impression of Ross Perot. But anyway, I would say that it's less likely that an intuitive type would be that would be like their passion, whatever. But that doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of people that is. And that's just speculation on my part. I really don't know. I try not to do those theoretical assumptions much because most of the time I feel like they don't lead anywhere good.
I just wondered if you noticed it from the people you've observed in real life, say comparing your two brothers.
Neither one of, well, I guess I can't say that. I would say neither one. I started to say neither one of my brothers had a whole lot of interest in cooking, but my younger brother actually does sometimes. He's had, again, it's sort of a phase thing with him too. He's had periods of his life where he's more into it than others. I mean, he always sort of wanted to have a flair, even if he was just like cooking a microwave pizza or something, then he would add stuff to it, kind of put his own little touch on it, like he put hot sauce or other seasonings or things that weren't in it, things like that, which I sometimes do also.
Yeah, I make my ramen with some red pepper.
Yeah, stuff like that. So yeah, there is a difference. My INTP brother is perfectly happy with microwaving a frozen chicken patty.
Every day for months. I know, I played games with him. He'd be like, gotta go get my chicken out of the oven. I'm like, oh my god. How many times are you gonna eat the same freaking thing?
Yeah, so I guess in that area, maybe NTs can sometimes be like SJs in that sense, where they might be, if it's more efficient to eat the same thing every day, then they're willing to, because it's not as important that it be some kind of variety of food. Not that NTs can't enjoy good food, just that it's less important maybe too.
I think it might be with
different, because I know an INFJ who says she loves cooking or whatever. So
Yeah.
It's like the motivation behind it is she likes trying out new concepts and stuff on
right.
cooking is, and also she likes the concept of herself being a cook. So the motivation is different than, because an SP I would see more likely to become passionate in cooking because they wanted to taste a whole bunch of different flavors and they wanted to, pursue that, and they can do that themselves. And or they wanted to show off food to other people. Like, hey, look at this awesome thing I made. Here you go.
My mother is INFJ, and I would say I've never actually asked her, I don't think, if she enjoys cooking, but I know that she cooks some things pretty well.
Yeah, tacos are good.
And so I grew up on her cooking and liked most of the things that she made on a regular basis. But on the other hand, I also know an INFJ that is more like me, where there's lots of times where she thinks microwaving something is too much effort.
Wow.
And she told her doctor that, and the doctor didn't understand. Like, what do you mean you can't take something out of a package and put it in the microwave?
Do you want me to make a psychiatrist's appointment?
Sometimes I just don't feel like it. And I understood what she meant. I was like, I know. There's those times where, man.
Next question might have been, do you often feel depressed?
Well, it's not even about depression. It's just about you just don't feel like doing something. So yeah, I would say the answer is again, with SPs, it's situational. Like if the situation, is, something.
Well,
okay, so
what I would think, what I think SJs would do is they would have not the same food every day, but the same food from week to week. Like their favorite foods. Like
some of them really do.
We have this on Wednesday, on Friday, on Monday.
Don't have like a plan for the week.
So yeah.
Right. Day or something.
Yeah, they'll and SPs can sometimes adjust to that because they like some of those things. Like I think of The Simpsons where, there's like Thursday night is pork chop night. Well, that's something that's put into effect by Marge, the SJ wife, but Homer gets used to it because it's like, oh, well, and then I look forward to having pork chops on Thursday. And he's disappointed when he doesn't.
But there's also a realism thing of someone's circumstances where, because food is so expensive now, where people will, especially the SJs, they will buy what is on special offer, what is the cheapest in the shops that particular week.
Yeah, sometimes that's the case, sure. And like I said, they're, because I have my coworkers as an example, when they get free food from the company they work for, they will eat it practically every day. And the only reason that the ones that I tend to go to lunch with don't do that is because of me.
Did they even take some home as well for other people?
Yeah. But I'm the one who usually is the onus for going other places than the restaurant that we work for, because if I wasn't there, not every day, but they would still a lot more often they would go and eat free food than they would, because I'm usually the one paying for it most of the time. So
wow.
It's like they really want something else, but they wouldn't get it themselves if they had to pay for it.
Right. And the reason why, folks, if you've not seen other videos with Jeff, is Jeff pays because he wants the company. The company is more important than the money.
Yeah, right.
Money is no object when it comes to having a good time.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'd like it to be even less of an object. But
I'd like to be rich.
Yeah. Because I still do have to think about it from time to time, and it annoys me that I do. That's the thing. That's like, personality-wise, it's annoying to me that anytime I have to think about saving money, that's an annoying thing. Whereas some people that comes naturally to them. Like when I have to be like, well, I probably shouldn't, go to Olive Garden every day, because then I'll run out of money.
What's Olive Garden?
It's a fast casual Italian place.
Oh,
it's a chain, national chain. It's all over America. It's not super authentic on the Italian food. It's more it's not fast food. It's not it's not like Taco Bell is to Mexican food, where it's not Mexican food at all. People that claim that it is don't know what they're talking about. But so it's closer to real Italian food than a fast food Italian thing might be. Their pizza is going to be more authentic than, say, Pizza Hut or something. But it's sort of like the Americanized version of Italian cooking. So, but it's good, and they've got really good soups, and pastas and
drugs and
and different things like that, different combination. A lot of it's pasta, but that's not all they have. But they're based on.
There's a lot of talk about ultra. You make me hungry.
There's some leftover chicken wings with that sauce you loved.
Ew. I love T-Means' crap.
All right, so the next one. For him, body and physiology is not something to be ashamed of. Nothing to me is something to be ashamed of. Like, me and shame don't really have a relationship. But that doesn't mean that I'm not insecure about my body in millennium situations. But it's not because of shame. It's because I just don't like the way it looks and feels sometimes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So do you think that shame is something that's associated with other people's opinion? What do you think? How would you define shame?
How do I define shame?
Yeah, because it might be slightly differently from other people because you're an SP.
Well, it seems to be something that people like. It seems to be very associated with guilt. Like, people feel like they should do a certain thing and they didn't, so they feel bad about it, or they feel like they're supposed to live up to a particular expectation and they didn't. And so because I don't tend to place those kind of expectations on myself, then I don't experience the thing where I didn't do that. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't get upset at myself ever for not accomplishing particular things. Like, I do, but it's not because I'm like, oh, I need to be ashamed of this. It's just kind of a foreign concept to me. Just the way I said the same thing about guilt. It's like, I don't experience that thing where there's like some kind of overwhelming feeling because I did something in the past, or just like that. I don't know what that feels like. So
you think it's quite a bit of a difference between the way SJs and SPs experience shame, where for SJs it's more about other people.
I'll even hear people, and it's not just SJs. It seems to be everybody who's not SP, and even a few SPs. I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with the background or whatever. But like, that say things like, they'll even talk about like what kind of music they listen to, and they'll say something like, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I like such and such, and I'm like, why? Why would you be ashamed to admit that you like a particular kind of music or an artist? Like, that's what you like. So why does shame ever enter into that?
Because they're thinking about what other people think of that.
Well, right, but I don't relate to that at all, because the whole point is you enjoy it because you're you and it's what you enjoy.
That's the thing.
So it doesn't matter whether anybody else does or not.
Yeah, and a little bit of science. Dario noticed the part behind the left ear, region T5, has to do with social feedback and what other people think of you, and that's very active in SJs.
And see, here's the thing. I enjoy sharing things I like with other people. So it's not that I completely don't care what other people like, because I'd like them to like the same things I do, in the sense that I can be like, oh, here, listen to this song I like. And if they like it too, I think that's a good thing. I'm like, oh, cool, we both like this song. But I wouldn't like, if somebody I was friends with or whatever was like, oh, I hate that song by, Blubbity Blub, I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I hate it too, because they do. And I'm not going to say, oh, I'm ashamed to say I like it. If I like it, I'll say I like it. If I don't, I don't. I'm not going to.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, the more people badmouth something, the more that I'm, sort of become interested in it. Like, oh, what's this like? And I won't claim to like something that I don't, unless I'm just kidding around, just for the sake of doing that. But, it does occur to me.
Yep. And if people want to see Jeff being honest, see our reviews of Blake's 7 episodes, especially last night's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm that, to me, that's the best, because like I'm evaluating each one as I come to it, and I'm not going in with a lot of preconceived notions. I mean, obviously I had a few, because I know stuff that Terry Nation's written before, so I've got certain things like that. But for the most part, like, I'm open to enjoying it. I'm not, going in with the attitude of, oh, I don't want to like this, because that's stupid,
Yeah. I'm glad of
And
that.
then, yeah, the number 6 there, champions cleanliness and hygiene. No. That one is that one's just straight up wrong.
So there's yourself, but what do you think of other
Well, and I said this
ESFPs?
before when I first read this thing that I think the only ESFPs that would champion cleanliness and hygiene are the ones that is their passion for whatever reason. Because the thing with SPs in general is we get into whatever it is we're into, and we're going to be hardcore in whatever that interest is. So if so, there are ESFPs. In fact, I know one online who's like a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And so she's into that aspect of it. So she's going to be, hardcore about like the nutrition aspect of things, and kind of has that, kind of general sort of clean living attitude or whatever, But that I would say is the exception rather than the rule. I would say it's very specific to the ones that that's their thing.
If we think of the ESFP, that is the woman that wants to look attractive and the man that wants to look attractive, then so the man might go, okay, this is personal grooming so that I can look at my best. So, because people associate the ESFP with that sort of like Casanova type, and maybe as a means to an end, it might the woman might want to look fantastic and the guy might want to look fantastic.
Well, yeah, I think we'd all like to look fantastic, sure. But that's not even necessarily always about cleanliness and hygiene, because you can have, I think of somebody like Christina Aguilera, who had that video and song called Dirty, and the whole point was she was like this grubby, slimy looking there, but it was hot to a lot of people. So it achieved what she was trying to achieve, but it wasn't clean or hygienic. So that look can be what succeeds in that, but it isn't always. So it's more about the particular style of the person and what they're trying to, what they're going for.
It's like, if you think of those men though that do all like the body shaving, the manscaping, and like, do you think they, in general, they are more likely to be the sensing types?
I think they're probably mostly SJs, because the only people I know who do that are SJs.
Yeah, I really don't know, because I really don't talk to very many of those people.
I know 4.
Those are not my peer group. So
They're not mine either.
I do not know the answer to that question.
And of course it can vary, because I think you said that your father was a ladies' man, and so he would have put effort into this area.
He didn't do the body shaving thing, but
It was a while ago.
Day, that wasn't popular. So
they probably wanted the hair in those days.
Yeah,
he might have actually he might have put hair on.
Up until I was already out of high school, hairy dudes were popular. Like,
it's like a mixture
in the 80s, it was like Tom Selleck and Burt Reynolds, with their big chest hair, was considered hot by women.
People who do the bodybuilding stuff usually think that the shaved look is better, because it like shows off their muscles.
Well, yeah, I guess that's been a thing a little bit longer, and bodybuilding has been popular for a while, but and I think there's a divide there too when it comes to the bodybuilding thing, because the ones that are doing it more about like, oh, check out the way I look, I think that tends to be more SJs, whereas the SPs, it's more like they get into it like anything else, where they're like the actual like weightlifting or the bodybuilding action itself is what they're into. Like that becomes the thing where that's what they're into. They want to do that, and looking good is sort of a side effect of that. In fact, sometimes those are the ones that go too far and don't look good, because they get abnormally muscular or whatever, because they're focused on that so much that they go too far. But
there's also a lot of competition at gyms between the guys.
Well, right. Yeah. There's that aspect where SPs tend to be competitive about things, and so that they want to try to do something. They lift more than the other guy or whatever like that. So, but again, that's the action of doing what the action is in the moment, as opposed to like what the after effect of it.
And you can have a thing where guys like work on their biceps a lot, because they always talk about like the guns, whereas that's not the most attractive muscle to women. It's like wider shoulders and abs. So it's like, they're almost doing it for other guys, comparing themselves to other guys.
Yeah, I think that probably, you know, is an age-old thing that goes back to, you know, the earliest dudes competing over the woman, and where you used to just beat each other up, and the winner got the woman. You know, there's more sophisticated versions of that over the years, like, you know, dueling and stuff like that. You know,
So
but
people
ultimately, that's what that's about.
So hopefully people will notice, like, over the next year, how my body changes, like from video to video.
Yeah, I noticed you look buff.
I'm hoping the same thing too, but I haven't yet gotten to the point where I haven't yet gotten to the point where I want to be on camera yet. So when I do, then I'm hoping that will be because, you know, there's a definite difference between, you know, the point I'm at versus previous videos where I've been seen.
Well, you have taken the bigger step though by doing kickball. So you're actually doing physical activities.
Well, yeah, I've never completely stopped that. You know, I've been doing tennis for the last several semesters too, and I'm about to start that again also. So I'm going to be doing tennis and kickball. So.
And that's relevant to the Hangout, because that's all in Socionics. That's all comfort sensing stuff, is being in touch with your body, things like that.
Yeah, I try to call my body at least once a week. Sometimes it won't return my calls.
Now, there might
put
also...
the thing up because I can't see it anymore.
Okay, there might also be a thing about SJs being kinky behind the curtains. Because of the introverted sensor.
It's... What?
Well, I mean, maybe a surprisingly high sex drive that they don't necessarily talk about a lot. I'm just like, whoa, I didn't know about her.
Why are we talking about this?
Because it's an SI thing.
All right, whatever.
Right.
Knows how to choose quality products. Yeah, I guess. Pays attention to other people's appearances, but not necessarily to their own. Yeah, that varies by the person, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're going to... If you're not somebody that's looking in the mirror all the time, then you maybe notice. But that's something that's probably changed with the technology now, that you have all these people that constantly taking pictures of themselves. Like, that didn't used to be a thing, and now it's so widespread that I'm sure there's plenty of ESFPs that are doing that are very aware of their own appearance because they're constantly taking pictures of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if people
were
doing
do that, but I think, you know, and it's not even just younger people. I know people older than me that are like that. So it's just there's a thing in the culture now that a lot of people do that. So
9 seems interesting.
What's that?
I said 9 seems interesting.
I was just about to read that. Watchful for symptoms of ailments, can accurately determine which organ is hurting, but doesn't always use adequate treatment methods.
It's my spleen.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate, but I don't know if that's really like an ESFP thing.
Prioritization is the only way.
That's you know, I guess maybe. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. I would think that most people would be able to do that, but I don't know. Maybe it would intuitive types maybe a little more difficult to identify, like the organ that's hurting. Yeah. Maybe I guess.
They actually get to a point where like ENTPs, they don't know when they're hungry, and sometimes when I'm really hungry, I don't know if I'm hungry or if I'm ill. I don't know.
All right, it's a bit strange, but
yeah, no, that's actually in the model though of intuiting types, not necessarily in touch with their bodies, especially ENTPs.
All right, I'll take your word for it. I mean, I can be so wrapped up in something. I've talked about this before. I think this is sort of an SP thing where we're so focused on a particular action, what we're into, that we don't think about those physical. And this is something Kersey talked about too. And we get so wrapped up in it, kind of neglect the physical needs And so,
Yeah.
you know, so we can like sort of not notice for a while, and then all of a sudden, whenever we take a break from whatever that is, or we end it, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm starving, extremely thirsty, and I need to go to the bathroom all at the same time. So, yeah.
Right. I have.
There was something else I was.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I just put him in, and it says Oliver's getting tired before he's thrown a single pitch. Sorry. Anyway, there was something else I was gonna say, and then I forgot what it was. On the, can you put the thing back up that you had?
Okay.
And then I lost it because you suddenly said something else. Yeah, you're almost there. That's too small for me to see. Okay. Oh, okay. I know what it was. I was gonna do a little tell a little brief story on that thing about the ailments, because the thing is, I guess, and I'm not going to say this is a general intuitive type thing because I haven't seen that it is, but certain people, NFs, I guess, certain NFs will have this kind of thing where they feel like their intuition is telling them something, and so they'll just deny facts because it's like, well, I've got this intuitive feeling, therefore it trumps facts. And that's the difference between, like, you know, I can get a hunch about something, but if something like immediately proves it wrong, then I'm like, okay, that isn't the case. Whereas certain NFs will be like, no, I have such a strong feeling about this that it just is.
Must prevail.
Even if it isn't. And so I had a certain former coworker that when I explained in detail what I had been through with my leg, where I pulled a muscle in it stretching, and it bothered me for like months. I finally had to go to the doctor, and I got these anti-inflammatory drugs that finally like helped the problem, and it eventually, you know, got better and didn't have the constant leg pain. And I know how it happened. Like, I remember what has happened. You know, it's not like every day or anything, but from time to time, when I wake up in the morning and I feel the need to stretch my legs, and my legs are not in, you know, they're not. I don't stretch enough. Although lately with doing more of the, you know, sports and things, it's better than it was. But I had a period where I really was not, you know, doing enough stretching at all. I was way out of shape. And so it happened more often where I would stretch my legs too hard, and I would like tweak a muscle in my leg, and it would hurt. But, you know, most of the time I would get over it pretty quickly, like later that day, or, you know, maybe the next day. Like, it would be sore for a little bit, but it didn't like do a permanent thing. And that time where I actually had to go to the doctor for it was and it was especially, I pulled it especially hard, where, you know, I can't say exactly because it wasn't, you know, I didn't like examine the internal workings, but I obviously stretched the muscle, you know, or tore enough of the stuff up in there that it, you know, did enough damage that it stayed inflamed for a really long time. But this particular coworker I was talking about, when I described the way that it happened, she basically decided that I didn't pull a muscle, that was a leg cramp. But see, as I know the difference between those two, because I've had leg cramps before, I know what it feels like. I know exactly what the sensation is in both cases. And I told her this, and she actually went so far as to print out something from a web page that described what the difference was between pulling a muscle and a leg cramp. And I read it, and it confirmed what I already knew about both of those things. And I said, yes, I did know these things, but thank you for this. And thank you for, once again, I can show you on the paper you gave me that it was in fact pulling a muscle, not a cramp. But she like stuck to this idea that she just felt like it, you know, it was a cramp. It was like just that kind of thing, which is like denying reality because for some reason it just feels like it, with no actual evidence, you know, because the thing that she printed out, like the factual evidence on there, supported what I said. And in case there's anyone listening that doesn't realize this, a leg cramp does not last for months.
Yep.
So when I know exactly what caused that in terms of the action, and it's the same action just on a smaller scale, then I know, because I think what she from my first description of it, because I'm not always good at describing things. From my first description of it, I think she thought I was saying that I would get a leg cramp while I was sleeping, but it's not while I'm sleeping. It's I wake up, but I'm still groggy enough that I'm not thinking, like my brain is not saying, oh yeah, don't stretch your leg too hard. I do the immediate instinctual thing of stretching my leg, and then I stretch it too hard. It's not, oh, I woke up with a cramp. It's a totally different thing. So yeah, anyway, there's that story.
This is just more on how Socionics sees this, how they see comfort sensing. This is how they see the ISTJ. And I asked Dario if this fitted the ISTJ, and he pretty much agreed with these bullet points. And I wonder if you've seen the same things in ISTJs, Jeff.
Well, I mean, we can do another video about ISTJs, I guess, but
yeah, okay.
Need to kind of wrap this up, but
okay. So wrapping
there's too
up.
much stuff to read right now.
Okay, so right, so I'm just going to show people that actually ISFP, very good SI at the back of the brain, ISFPs, which fits them being the artist. Extremely good imagination and visual memory. And Imogen used to have a photographic memory. Right, that'll be about that. What else is there? Right, just, oh yeah, there's a little bit here. Let's see if there's a bit here on SI. Yes, that was it. I'll go through these little bits. So I asked. Right. This bit here. I'll read this out and then we can end. Right, because I asked Victor what he thought of Dario Nardi's definition of of SI, and he said, oh, that was me. I have a question. Victor has had a look at how Dario conceives of introverted sensor in both of his books. What does he think of the way Dario and MBTI defined SI? And this is what Victor said via Maria. Victor is saying that a lot of Dario's definitions are very similar to his own, but he doesn't really tell different charges apart. The biggest similarity, Victor's going to tell about the biggest similarity in the definitions of introverted sensor. Dario was mentioning how introverted sensation relates to the memory of experiences. They are good specialists in their field. That's very similar to my own observations, because I noticed that the people with lead SI, tend to be very good at performing and implementing whatever they are told to do. I had sessions this string thing, which had to do with teams creating something out of parts. Usually the team which had the introverted sensation lead person, SI DOMs, to actually build that structure would usually win. So this is what we see in the same way, Dario and me. There is one thing that is different, but Dario thinks that just mechanical memory, like remembering the numbers, like the rows of numbers, is also SI, but I disagree with that. I wanted to mention visualization. It works very well with the sensory types who have lead SI. And then just this little bit here. But the rational introverted sensors like ESFJ and ESTJ are more narrow. They see only what they are really interested in. The rational types have no like, second, and then it was interrupted. I would suggest that these questions better be discussed when Dario is present. Right, so those are pretty much the differences. So, I've been given the... Oh, just one little thing, Jeff. What Dario wrote about SI in tandem use. This will take about a minute, and then I can go. So, tandem use is page 159 in Dario's Functions book. 8 keys to self-leadership. Right, 159. Right, I'll just read this out, and then I'll the null end. So this is how introverted sensing can be used in tandem with NE. We can get impressive results using introverted sensing in tandem with extroverted intuiting. We might have a keen awareness of what has come before and link that knowledge to what might be. This might involve drawing upon a wealth of past experience and sifting through what is known to discover patterns. For example, researching the history of a place in great detail to solve a lingering mystery. We might use allegories from traditional fantasy to pass on important standards and values to the next generation, or read mystery novels as a way to relax from the daily grind of work. A little imagination, fantasy, or humor can lighten our daily routine or make a long-term relationship more enjoyable. Seeing positive possibilities also reassures us when a situation is unstable. Now, Maria, there's a saying in Russian, it might also be in other cultures as well, that intuition is...
In Texas, in Tennessee, well, it's in Texas, it might be in Tennessee.
Oh, right, intuition is a daughter of knowledge.
That Bush line, yeah.
Which line?
The George W. Bush was in Tennessee, and he said, there's a saying in Tennessee.
Right.
It's in Texas, it might be in Tennessee.
Right, it's like, something like, intuition is a daughter of knowledge. And so the idea here would be, in other words, the more you know, the more you can make connections. Because if you don't know something, you can't make a connection to something you don't know. So the more things someone knows, the more they can say, oh, this reminds me of this reminds me of that. And so they would say that introverted sensing is doing all the research and learning all these different things.
Or as Yogi Berra once said, if it ain't Pepsi, it ain't Pepsi.
Okay. Right, so this is the last paragraph. And then this is how extroverted intuiting is used with introverted sensing. We can get impressive results using extroverted intuiting in tandem with introverted sensing. We might interpret the meaning of a situation by relating it to images from the past. We see a pattern in the present moment, and in addition to imagining alternative scenarios, we draw upon our memories of the past. This recollection enables us to explore many more situations at once. Similarly, an academic researcher might do extensive research and book study of those who have come before while exploring a theoretical problem. We might embrace the convenience of supportive institutions so that we can live more freely in the world of ideas. We might even dream up a novel way to do something and then establish it as a new tradition or predictable standard for society. So that's how NE and SI work together. And whereas SE usually works in tandem with NI. Right. Talk about that in future. So anything to add, Jeff?
Send me money so I can hire my rotation of gourmet chefs.
Coming to think of that, on your YouTube channel, you've got donate. How do you get the donate button?
Look at the FAQ, Ben.
Okay. Right, okay.
Yeah, it's support the channel. So yeah, go to my channel, the SV Spaz, and click on support and send me money. Because I'm a starving artist who needs it for my important educational work to promote understanding the mankind and something, you know. Yeah, that.
Or send Jeff money so that he can give it to the children he supports.
Well, yeah, that too. I was trying to keep it light, you know.
Okay.
I don't want to actually come off like I'm trying to guilt people or whatever.
Okay. So it's bye from me.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.